Julia Sweeney was a regular, oh yes, she's here. She was a regular on that show for 4 years in the early 90s. She was best known for her monologues such as Letting Go of God, hello, and God Said, ah! Please welcome Julia Sweeney.
Oh, hello, here we are. I'm so excited. What a wonderful showing of people. I'm so excited. Hello, my fellow Reason Ralliers. Let's not turn this into a Reason riot, because I really think that would be very bad for our self-image of us going crazy. Who are we? What unites us? We are the people who use reason to make sense of the world and who use reason to advocate for the laws of the land. Crazy idea. We resist superstition and supernatural explanations. Yes, we are people who enjoy these things in art, in stories, and in fantasy, but we understand the difference between our creative fictional imagination and the world as it really is. We are a big part of the citizenry, and we are people who want our voice heard here in the Capitol. The religious fundamentalists and the religious conservatives who base their worldview on the Bible have a ridiculously outside influence on the laws of this land, and part of the reason we're here is to correct that. Now, I was born in Spokane, Washington, and immediately baptized a Catholic, and frankly, I loved being a Catholic. I loved the ritual of the Mass. I loved the priests and the nuns. I always wanted to be a nun, and now here I am, finally a nun. And I loved the music of the church. But then, as an adult, I decided to take a Bible study class. And frankly, everything went downhill from there. We all know that the Old Testament is a crazy jumble of legends, a grab bag of myths that reinforce the tribalism of the Jewish people, but not that many people know that the New Testament often portrays Jesus as antisocial, obtuse, and shockingly cruel. Jesus' parables are often foggy and meaningless and even offensive. For example, here's just one. Jesus helps us understand God's relationship with humans by telling us a story of how God treats people the way people treat their slaves. They beat some more than they beat others. In fact, the Bible refers to slavery all over the place. And not only does the Bible not say slavery is wrong, the Bible actually gives a lot of advice about how you're supposed to keep your slaves and how slaves should behave obediently at all times to their masters. Now, I really thought that the Son of God would say that slavery was wrong. But no, Jesus does not say that. In fact, Jesus uses slavery as an example of how God treats his people. Here are some of the words Jesus uses in the New Testament. In Luke chapter 19, Jesus says that he is like a king who says, "Anyone who does not recognize me, bring them here and slaughter them before me." In John chapter 15, Jesus says, "Anyone who does not believe in me is like a withered branch that will be cast into the fire and burned." In Matthew, Jesus says, "I come not to bring peace, but a sword." And then my favorite, in Luke, he says, "And if you don't have a sword, sell your clothes and buy one." Christians who find the Quran filled with murderous and hateful language would do well to look into their own Bible. Sometimes the stone in your own eye is so enormous you are completely blind. It is so ironic that the Family Values Christian Coalition, which has much political clout, bases their morality on a religious leader, Jesus, who discouraged his converts to have any contact with their own families, who did not marry or have children himself, and explicitly told his followers not to have children, and that if they already had families, they should just abandon them. When it comes to the topic of women, the New Testament is offensive. St. Paul writes, Man is the image and glory of God, but woman is the glory of man. A woman should learn in quietness and full submission. I do not permit a woman to teach or have any authority over a man. She must be silent. If there is anything a woman desires to know, let her ask her husband at home. This is the Bible. The Bible. The good news. And yet, much of our political culture is based on these archaic myths. This has translated itself into laws that negatively affect millions and millions of people. Because I come from the Catholic tradition, I'm going to use an example from that religious tradition here in the US. About 20% of Americans are Catholic. Conservative Catholic organizations like the Catholic League and the US Catholic Bishops' Conference lobby hard and have an outsized influence in US politics and law. But most Catholics themselves are not conservative, at least when it comes to issues like birth control and abortion. In fact, 60 to 65% of American Catholics are pro-choice, about the same as the rest of America. But conservative Catholics have a big influence on American law. 5 of the 8 Supreme Court justices are Catholic, and it was 6 out of 9 when Scalia was alive. While the Hobby Lobby case was filed by evangelical Christians, it was the Catholic Conference of Bishops who engineered the Hobby Lobby Supreme Court case to block contraception as a standard healthcare insurance benefit by employers who object, regardless of the desires of their employees. This has an enormous impact. 1 in 5 people who work at a hospital in the US are working at a Catholic hospital. Now, you may say that the lovable new Pope Francis is leading the Catholic Church towards sanity, but not exactly, at least when it comes to women and reproductive control. With the Zika virus spreading and many urging the Pope to relax his views on contraception, he said that abortion was absolutely evil and that contraception was only slightly less evil. Then he offhandedly referred to a special dispensation argued for by Pope John Paul II in the 1960s, where he claimed that it was permissible for nuns in the Congo to use birth control pills only because they were being raped so often by the militias that they were becoming pregnant and unable to continue their work. Now, just let that sink in for a minute. That's the only case where the Church or Pope Francis can possibly imagine a situation where contraception is ethical. He seemed to half-heartedly and even blithely imply that might also be the case for women trapped in the Zika virus tragedy. My mind just boggles over this. But then the Pope did nothing to clarify, let alone codify these sentiments. In the meantime, millions of poor women in South America who are Catholic, where abortion is illegal, mostly because of the Catholic Church, are at risk for bearing Zika babies that will, among other things, surely keep them and their children condemned to poverty. Not only that, but the Zika virus is making its way here, and our own government is making birth control choices for women more and more limited. This is because of the religious right, including the Catholic Church. Many of my Catholic friends tell me privately that they are actually non-believers, atheists, but they're still going to church for cultural and sentimental reasons. I actually sort of get that. I really do. Some are even part of great groups like Catholics for Choice. But the vast majority of these Catholics are silent. Because of this, they allow themselves to be counted among the number that the conservative Catholic organizations say they represent. I think conservative religious influence does not represent the American public. I think there are a lot of people out there, formerly even part of one religion or another, but by their silence, they lend themselves to a very insidious political pressure towards fundamentalist, patriarchal, superstitious laws. As Edmund Burke said, The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing. Well, this needs to change. We are here today. Just by showing up at this rally, we are counting ourselves among those without gods or masters, but as free-thinking individuals, free from superstition and supernaturalism. We are atheists, and let our voices be heard. Yes! We're the nuns. And our voices should be loud and clear and specific. We want a separation between the church and state, just as our forebears envisioned. Let's please succeed at this great American experiment. Thank you. Thank you.
Julia Sweeney.